What's going on, everybody? Hope everybody's doing well. It is currently after 2:20, I believe, right now, a.m. It is August the 29th, 2025. It's a Friday morning. I'm coming to you with a movie review. I'm going to be talking a little bit about Alto Nights. So, the movie, I'm just going to get into it. The movie is about Frank Costello and Vito Genovese, and they're best of friends. They grew up together since they were younger. I believe since they were kids. And it's played, the characters are played, both characters are played by Robert De Niro. And he does a good job. And I liked it. I watched it all the way through. It was 2 hours. And it explained a lot. It's based on true events. The one thing I didn't care for, I would probably say him playing both parts in the scene, in the same scene. That was kind of different to see because you don't see that a whole lot in a movie. He did a good job. It's just I would have played, or I would have picked Joe Pesci to play Vito and Robert De Niro to play Frank Costello. That was like the only real thing. And then there's another part where there's a character, which I'll get to here in a little bit, that I wish that they would have made a little more normal than how they made him. But like I said, I'll get into that here in a second. So it's about Frank Costello and Vito Genovese and how they grew up together and they wound up kind of bucking heads later in life. So Vito got into some trouble and he wound up giving the reins to Frank, his partner, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to be gone for a while. Take over." And a while wound up being 15 years. And I believe he went. The movie said he went to Italy, but the the real information that I read online said Europe. So I don't know. I believe maybe the movie just expanded it a little bit. So when he came back after all those years, he came to Frank and he said, "Hey, look, I I had all these things going on, and I believe that after all these years, I have a part, a cut that's deserved to me that I deserve." And Frank goes, "Listen, Vito, you've been gone for X amount of years, 15 years, and things have changed. And when you gave me things to run, I put a lot of people in order. I helped a lot of people out. I straightened a lot of stuff out." And so Vito said, "Okay, whatever. Like, yeah, like, And so Frank said, long story short, you're not getting anything. You've been gone for 15 years. Things have changed. No, I can't just hand everything to you." And the thing between Frank and Vito is that they were different. They were night and day. Vito was a killer gangster, and Frank was a level-headed, cool-headed person. He was very in line with certain things, and he had a lot of people under his belt, politicians, commissioners, and so he was doing things the right way. And so after that beating between them, Vito said, "Okay, we'll just talk later." And he got mad and he started, killing people, and he was just blowing off steam. So he wound up getting married to this girl, this woman, and she had a nightclub called the Zebra. And what wound up happening was, I believe in the movie it talks about him killing her ex husband, and she got upset about that. And then on top of that, Vito wound up skimming some money off the top of her nightclub. And she said, "What is this?" Like, she caught him and was like, "What is this? What are you doing? You can't be doing this." And he goes, "Oh, it's my cut. Like, we're together. This is my cut." And he was just bullying a lot of people around, and he was no good. So after a while, she wanted a divorce and took him to court, and I don't think it worked out very well. And I think they were just separated at that time. So they didn't really talk a whole lot about the marriage, but they focused on Frank and Vito. And so, like I said, Vito would start killing, and Frank said, this is it. Like, this has to stop. Like, someone has to be held for responsibility. And so afterwards, um, Frank said, "You know what? I'm going to take care of this." He talked to the person that shot at him, which is Vincent Vincin I can't really announce the last name. Gigante. I don't know. Very Italian. And this is the character that I was talking about, that I didn't like how they made him, because they made him kind of weak and kind of like, I don't want to say dumb or stupid, because that's not very polite to say, but he wound up not really having a backbone, and he did what a lot of people told him to do, and so he didn't think for himself or stand up for himself. And so, but in real life, I don't know if that's how he was, um, but I'll talk more about him later. So he wound up Frank wound up talking to Vincent, said, "Hey, turn yourself in." And so he turned himself in, and I think he got off kind of light. He didn't really. And afterwards, Vincent went over to Frank and said, "Oh, thank you for getting me off. Like, it's okay. I'm so sorry." And Frank said, "No, it's okay. You're the messenger. Don't worry about it." And so, um, it was a 2-hour movie, so I'm trying to remember every little detail. And if I'm wrong, if you've seen the movie, and if I'm wrong, please let me know and correct me so I can see it and so everybody else can see it. But I'm going to read my notes here in a few minutes. But afterwards, there's still killing going on. Frank said, I'm just going to give everything to him. But what I want to do is give everything to him in front of the families. I want to call the heads of the families and give my position over to Vito so he can be happy and we can be done with this mess, because I'm over it. I just want to retire and be a homebody. So they finally got to a decision to meet with someone, to meet up with someone at a farm up that they had up in upstate New York near Canada. So they wound up going up there, and all the families are up there, and the heads of the families, and so on and so forth. So Frank and his partner was heading up there, and Vito and his little partner was heading up there. And so while heading up there, I guess what happened was, there was the person that had this farm was running a bootlegging company, I guess, out of his farm, and kind of trying to make it hush hush, but I think the law kind of got on to him. It's like checking out a lot of all these, mafioso cars going up there, and the law said, like, it's kind of suspicious with all these cars. Like, I want to check it out. So the one cop was looking at them and started spying on them. And in the meantime, before kind of this all happened, they were tipped off. And I believe Frank Castellano tipped them off and said, "Hey, look, like all these people are going to go down, and or rather, they're going to go up into this farm, and this guy has booze and everything, so you might want to check it out." And but it was unclear because it was anonymous, so that was interesting to see. But let me see. I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. So after they got tipped off, the police started chasing them and started pulling them over after they got on the farm and started. Everyone was running. Everyone was running through the farm and the woods and taking off on their vehicles. It was quite funny scene. And so they got pulled over, and I think like nothing really happened. I think some people went to court and jail over it and everything. And over time, Vito went into jail, and I think he went over drug gambling and things like that. I believe he went to jail over that. And later, Frank Costello, it was over money laundering, I believe, racketeer. It was something I can't remember offhand. Just trying to remember all these hot tips and topics that I just watched it too, and there's so much to take in. But he was in jail. He went over to Missouri in the facility where his friend Vito was, and they wound up letting everything go and talking and being there for each other. And Frank wound up leaving, and he got out early, and Vito wound up staying in the jail, and he passed away in prison. And I'm not sure what year he passed away in. I'm going to grab my notes. Give me a second. Frank Castellano died at the age of 82 in New York's Doctors Hospital on February 18th, 1973. His wife was by his side. Vito Genovese died February the 14th, 1969, at the United States Medical Center for Federal Prisoners. He was 71 years of age. After death, the Genovese family began to grow and move forward. So that was then, and to this day, I'm not sure about the Genovese family or a lot of the other families, because this was in the 50s, and so a lot of the families, grew, and in the 90s, later part of the 80s and 90s, those families were taken down by informants, and like a lot of interesting things went down. So to this day, they say there's no mafia, and they said if there is anything, it's more like a social gathering. It's people that get together, and who knows, there might be things behind it. I don't know. It might be an underground situation now. I don't know. But back then it was very interesting. And I believe J. Edgar Hoover wound up saying that there was no mafia in the States and things like that, which I don't know if he actually knew or not, or if he was being paid off. I don't know all these things. Just it's very interesting. Who really knows the truth? You know, one person can say one thing, and another person can say another. So I'm gonna read a little bit here. So the Alto Nights was a little nightclub, not little nightclub. It was a little social club that people came to. The mafioso people came, and they hung out and they talked about business. And so that was where that Alto Nights came from, like the name of the movie. Um, in the early years in Rise to Power, the film opens up with Frank Costello and Vito Genovese as young friends, members of the Alto Night Social Club, a hub for mob activity. They rise through the ranks of the Lucchese crime family during Prohibition, primarily through bootlegging and gambling rackets. Vito, known for his commits ruthlessness, commits a double homicide and flees to Europe, leaving Frank in charge. So he was in Europe. The movie says that he's in Italy, but I I believe he was in Europe. You know, if they say Europe, I'll believe that. Let me see. So the return in conflict. Vito returns from Europe after World War II, expecting to reclaim his position as boss. He clashes with Frank over the decision or direction of the family, particularly Vito's desire to enter the drug trade, which Frank sees as a dangerous path. A failed assassination attempt on Frank, orchestrated by Vito, initiates the conflict, escalating tensions and power struggle. Vito's paranoia and ambition intensifies, leading to a brutal murder of Albert Anastasia, Frank's chosen successor. And so it just talks a lot about the history of the mafia and how different ones became in the power and the different falls of people. And so I highly suggest you watch it, even if you don't want to watch it, you think it's no good. I mean, like I said, it's 2 hours long, and I liked it. I was interested in enough to where it went by quickly, and so just give it time and give it a chance. And if you really don't like it, that's fine. I mean, at least you tried. Um, However, I there were things I didn't like about the movie, but I kept watching it, you know. But I mean, overall, I enjoyed it. So I think the best thing to do is just go out there and try to see it and think for yourself, and not really listen to other people, and try to figure out a way, um, or not figure out a way. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm so tired. I haven't slept very well. Um, anyway, I'm gonna let that go. The climax and aftermath. The movie is in a power struggle between Frank and Vito, with Frank ultimately choosing to dismantle his empire rather than succumb to Vito's control. The film explores the changing landscape of organized crime, with drugs becoming the dominant force. So that was the drug deal. The drug trade was a very powerful thing back then, and it's bad, and a lot of people got into it and got killed over it, and so to this day I think it's still going on, but I don't know if it's the mafia. It's probably higher ups. I don't know. The film highlights the impact of their rivalry on the mafia and American society. The movie also features a scene where Frank is going through a slide projector of his life, moments and narrating them. So he in the movie is talking about his life and what's going on, and it's very interesting. A lot of people didn't like the voiceover and him talking to the camera and everything, but it was good. Like he's a good storyteller. It was I didn't mind it at all. Um, the one thing I just couldn't wrap my head over around is when you see Robert De Niro playing those characters within the same scene, and I just couldn't get over that. Like I just couldn't. Like I had to get past that somehow because, like I said, you don't see that much anymore. And so, I mean, he did a good job. So, I mean, I guess it is what it is. The friendship and betrayal within the mafia, the cooperation influence of power and ambition, the changing nature of organized crime, the impact of the mafia in American society. The Altoe Knights is a character driven story of two mafia or mobsters navigating a complex web of power, loyalty, and betrayal, all while shaping the future of organized crime. So, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed yourself. It's not anything that is spectacular, but it is a good movie, and I highly suggest you to watch it. So, with that said, I'm going to leave. Hopefully, you enjoyed the video. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe and leave a comment. I'll get back to you. Enjoy y'all's weekend. Bye.